I'm out at Rockingham Speedway on a Friday, the day before a big drift event. So MB Drift has their annual Halloween Havoc event. This year it's happening at Rockingham Speedway. It's Friday. I'm here to help set up and also going to test out the new Just Engineering AE86 Super Angle Kit. I just had the alignment done yesterday. We set caster at 3.5 degrees positive and camber at negative 4.5 degrees, which is a pretty big change. I used to run 6 degrees of caster and about negative 8 degrees of camber because that's I wanted the caster for the most self-steer, and now with the angle kit I won't have to run that much, and the camber, well, I couldn't bring any more positives, so that's just how it was. This angle kit is kind of overkill. It has a ton of steering angle, but it fixes a lot of geometry stuff. So you should check out my other videos where I talk all about that. But yeah, I'm gonna go take a couple of test laps and we'll see what this angle kit feels like.
This angle kit has taken some getting used to, so obviously I've gotten enough testing in. I have a good feel for it. The first thing I'm gonna say is that yes, steering effort is definitely increased at low speeds, as well as when catching angle, like when you throw it and you have to grab it again. It's definitely a lot stiffer, a lot more higher effort, but I don't know, it just means I'm getting more of a workout. Alright, so we're gonna hop on over to Little Rock, go get some laps in over there, and see if we can get tandems in and see if I can talk through what the angle kit feels like here. I will say one of the coolest things about this, I feel like, that's way better than cut knuckles, is that when you're turning, you can definitely feel that this is a proper, I guess, alignment kit. You can feel that it definitely changes how, or like, you can feel the tires, how they want to go, right? How they want to work together. Whereas you don't necessarily have that with just cut knuckles, unless they have a really, really precise alignment for them. That's part of why it's so hard to steer when you're just going, you know, not drifting, is the tires kind of fight each other when they're not drifting. So it's kind of hard to get used to some of that stuff with manual steering anyway, but I don't know, I think it's great. All right, here we go. Woo! right, so we switched up the full course, which is the fast infield road course layout. We're doing a high-speed entry contest right now, so I'm gonna go see how fast I can do it. Right now, I think the fastest is a 59 or a 64. With this angle kit, we'll see how fast I can go. Oh, that was so much smoke. Okay, I need more run up. Yeah. Oh, that was fast. That was so fun. Woo! Oh, that was so much smoke. Do you need this much steering angle? No. Is it fun? Oh, yeah. Oh, that was so much tire smoke. That was so cool.
Give it, man.
Thank you.
Video.
Thanks, man.
All right, so now I'm packing up. I headed home. Man, I tell you what, I got some thoughts about this angle kit. So let's head back to my office and we'll talk about all the technical little details about this angle kit. All right, so let's wrap up this whole review. A little background on my car, and then we'll delve into the bad and the goods about this angle kit. So my car, the Beams Supercharged 3S GE, makes 250 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque at the wheels. As far as steering suspension, aside from the Just Engineering kit, I'm using a Flows quick rack. And then I have Megan Spec RS coilovers. In the rear, I have the Battle Garage 5.5K progressive springs. And I also have the Excessive Manufacturing weld-on traction bracket mounts for upper and lower 4-link mounts, and then adjustable 4-link and panhard. With the Super Angle kit, I'm at 2.5 turns lock to lock that's with the Flows quick rack and the, obviously the shorter knuckles from the Angle kit. All right, let's start with the bad. This angle kit is super overkill for probably about 90% of Corolla or Corolla owners out there. It's super, super aggressive, way overkill for most people out there, unless you're like me and you're trying to do, get them, the most extreme things on your Corolla. Now, I think that the worst thing about this angle kit is the weight of the steering. It is super stiff, and so pretty much the reason for this is because the distance between the ball joint and the tie rod end, it's super short. So you quicken your steering ratio by installing a quick ratio steering rack, or by changing the distance between the ball joint and the tie rod end. Because I'm combining both the Flows quick rack with this, this knuckle design, it makes steering really tough. Another thing for me is I don't have a tilt column, so it's up, and there's no adjustment to it, so that also doesn't help when it's up higher and I feel like I'm lifting the wheel to turn it instead of just turning it in front of me. That's something I'm going to address later, but it's worth mentioning. At low speeds, obviously steering is heavy, and at higher speeds you still notice it, especially like I said, when you throw the car into drift and catch it, it just takes some getting used to. It's a lot heavier, so it kind
It jerked my arms around a little bit, so my shoulders and my arms are sore from the event. It's not the worst thing in the world, you just got to get used to it. Another thing is that takes some getting used to is the steering ratio. So because, like I said, I stacked the two things to quicken the steering ratio on this, it makes adjustments really difficult, at least until I get used to it. Another thing that kind of adds to this is that when you do a manual rack swap on an AE86, you swap the intermediate shaft for a longer intermediate shaft. This usually creates some play between the intermediate shaft and the column, because from the factory, they're kind of like glued in place, sort of. They've got a rubberized coating that helps seal it in place, and so when you swap them, that gets broken and it just ends up a little loose. So that's something I'm also going to address to fix that, but that's just something to be aware of. Another bad thing is the stance is super, super wide. So you have to cut your fenders or run big flares. I mean, I have plus 40 millimeter fenders, and I still had to trim them because of how aggressive it is. Other than that, I mean, I really can't complain. That's really it as far as any of the bads and the negatives go for this angle kit. So the good, first thing, it's still very Corolla-y. So, AE86s have a specific, an exciting driving dynamic. I don't know how to explain it other than that. You drive it, it's just exciting. Maybe it's just because there's so much going on. I'm not really sure, but Corollas are just exciting to drive. And installing this angle kit doesn't take away from that at all. It still drives very much like a Corolla, very exciting. It doesn't change, just by putting an angle kit on, it doesn't change how you drive. It just opens up the ability that you have of how you want to drive your car. The improved steering and suspension geometry in the front end led to me being able to carry more speed through the corners. I think this is attributed to the Ackerman correction. When you're drifting, sometimes you've got one wheel that drags a little bit, but with the way this is set up, it's better than the angle kit I had before, which was something I built in my garage, which is better than a lot of the off-the-shelf options out there. So with the corrections in Ackerman, as well as the adjustable Ackerman, you can really dial it in to be able to carry more speed because you're not scrubbing the front end. I think also with how the geometry is when I was at drift and how I have my tensioner or how I have my traction bracket set up, it allowed me to utilize the anti-squat in the rear of the car quite a bit more. So it just feel like it just had a ton of grip, and I could just carry through. I mean, I could be pretty wild with it. Didn't really change angle, steering angle at all, but I just was able to grip up better, I feel like. The bump steer was also awesome, the roll center correction was also awesome. Bump steer was greatly reduced over what I had before, which is pretty neat because, I had the big fat roll center adjusters, plus the Megan Racing outer tire irons that have, bump steer correction or roll center adjusters in those as well. This kit is way better and eliminated pretty much all bump steer. I tried to spin out, I tried to hit max lock, but with the track that I was on, I really couldn't do a whole lot with that because, trying to stay on the road surface on these big sweepers is kind of difficult. So maybe on a skid pad, I'll test that out again to see if I can hit full lock, but really I couldn't even hit full lock before the car gripped up. So I could be wide open spinning the tires and the car still like gripped up and it either dove too far to the inside where I had to let off the throttle, or if I let off just a little bit, it straightened back out to where it should have been. So that's pretty neat, and that's kind of one of the typical things you get with angle kits. This just makes driving a lot more forgiving. It just, because you've got more angle, and as you get more steering angle, the way the geometry is set up, I can't quite explain it, but as you get more angle, you have to have more power to carry that angle. So it kind of brings it back to the better spot where you're supposed to be. That doesn't mean it's totally easy and it's, you're just punching the easy button, but I did notice that I was able to bring it back better. And that's something I'm going to have to adjust because one of the coolest things, one of the things about adding this angle kit is that you can scrub speed with angle, which is something you don't get to do very often with Corollas because angle kits just, well, to be honest, most angle kits for 86 just kind of suck. So you can't ever have a good enough setup, or it's very difficult to find a good enough setup that scrubs speed, like where you can throw angle and scrub speed. And I know I'm going to upset some people by saying that, but really a lot of the angle kits out there, the ones that people rant and rave about, this is the best thing ever, or they put it on their car and they think it's the best thing ever, they're just not. They just can't compare to this. This kit is just so awesome. It's so great. Sure, there's a couple out there that come close or that can compare, but this still is just way better than anything else out there. Without a front sway bar, I thought the front end was going to be super spongy. That was something I was worried about. However, like Just Engineering said, with the amount of roll center correction it has and with how wide the front stance is, I didn't feel like I needed a sway bar. Sure, I could probably benefit from adding one, but I didn't feel that it was necessary, or that without a sway bar, the car just felt like totally out of control. It actually felt very controlled. It felt pretty good. Honestly, I feel like this brings the AE86 to a whole new level, right? So it doesn't take away from all the things that a Corolla is. It doesn't take away from the driving, the Corolla driving experience, the AE86 driving experience. It just adds more tools to your tool belt. Just like a hydraulic handbrake is a tool to use. This also gives you more tools because you're able to scrub speed with angle. At the very end of the Little Rock course where I loop around, you can see I kept grabbing the handbrake because I'm used to having to use that to extend angle while scrubbing speed. But I would have to think, oh, let go of that and let the car rotate and it'll slow down by itself with angle. So it just adds more tools to your tool belt, which is really neat and it's super helpful. I mean, it really, I've been driving an 8.6 for 10 years now. I've driven with no angle mods. I've driven with power steering rack. I've driven with manual rack and power steering knuckles. I've driven with modded knuckles, and I've driven with extended control arms and notched extended control arms and all of this stuff. And this is so far above all of that, so far beyond all that. All the traditional E86 setups, this can drive just as well as those. It doesn't take away from that. It just adds more to it. The corrections in the geometry, they fix a lot of the weaknesses or the issues that you have with just the AE86, the typical traditional steering suspension design of it. And it's just fantastic. You can still drive it like a traditional 8.6, or you can drive with 70+ degrees of steering angle if you're just being super wild and the course layout will allow you to do that, or if you've just got tons of power and can do that. All in all, I am super, super happy with this angle kit. This is probably one of the best purchases I've made for my Corolla in a long time. So I'm going to keep running it. Obviously, I spent the money. I'm keeping it on the car. I'm very happy with it. One of the things I'm actually really excited about is that because of how quick the steering ratio is, I might be able to use an electric power steering column with drifting. One of the problems in an electric column is that it just can't quite keep up with the counter steer like wheel speed. But since this is only 2.5 turns lock to lock now, I think it can, which is going to be good for me because I have arthritis in my neck that affects my shoulders and stuff. So an electric power steering column, I think that's on the list to add to my car now, to see if it can keep up now with this angle kit. Honestly, if you want an over-the-top setup for your car, you want the best for your Corolla, this should be on your list. 100% hands down, this angle kit, fantastic. Now, if you're a traditional 8.6 guy and you think this is way overkill, or you don't want this much, you think it's too much for you or for your car, you don't need this crazy wide stance, all that stuff, well, keep an eye out because I've heard a rumor that Just Engineering is coming out with what I would call like more of a street style AE86 angle kit, where it doesn't extend the track that much, but it still gives a lot of the benefits that this angle kit has. So keep an eye out for Just Engineering to see when they release that, because it should be a better fit for the other 90% of Corolla guys that this is too much for them. Seriously, with how well this kit was engineered, I'm really excited to how their street style or less aggressive kit ends up, because I'm sure it's going to drive just as well, but it just won't have the the crazy amount of steering angle. It'll be a more tame version. I've got one more drift event this year, November 20th. I'm going to try and film some more stuff using all of the angle. Maybe I'll see if I can get a good shot of in the wheel well of showing the the articulation, the suspension, the angle. But seriously, if you got questions, if you've got anything, maybe you've got a suggestion or a question that you want answered in some more videos, let me know. So I've been building and drifting 8.6s for a decade now. Sure, I'm not one of the super old OGs that's been doing it since the 80s or 90s, but I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot from those guys. And I'm a really technical person, so I have a pretty good understanding of a lot of the technical details that some people may not understand. So if you got questions, put them below, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Thanks, guys.